So when you open the book of Proverbs, you start in chapter 1, you can see that wisdom is introduced in a fairly casual way. To know wisdom and instruction, to discern the sayings of understanding, to receive instruction in wise behavior, righteousness, justice, and equity. So what is wisdom? Well, the parallel tells us that wisdom is just instruction. There are sayings of understanding. There are instructions in wise behavior. We get it. They're wise teachings that God gives. A few verses later, in verses 7 through 8, the fear of Yahweh is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Hear, my son, your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. Again, what is wisdom here? Well, it's just instruction. It's the teaching from your father. It's the instruction from your mother. But quite quickly, wisdom becomes heavily personified in the very same chapter. Starting in 1:20, wisdom shouts in the street. She lifts her voice in the square at the head of the noisy streets. She cries out at the entrance of the gates in the city. She utters her sayings. How long, O naive ones, will you love being simple-minded? And scoffers delight themselves in scoffing, and fools hate my knowledge. Turn to my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit on you. I will make my words known to you. Notice, by the way, again, wisdom is closely associated with the words of God. Wisdom speaks forth God's words. What about in chapter 2? Chapter 2 says, make your ear attentive to wisdom. The parallel says, incline your heart to understanding. For if you cry for discernment, lift your voice for understanding, if you seek her as silver and search for her as you would for hidden treasures, then you will discern the fear of Yahweh and discover the knowledge of God. For Yahweh gives wisdom from his mouth. Remember wisdom, words of God from the mouth. Come knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. So again, we can see that God's wisdom is closely associated with the words of God. But then in chapter 3, we can see the personification of wisdom again. Move that. All right. How blessed is the man who finds wisdom and the man who gains understanding. For her profit is better than the profit of silver, and her gain better than fine gold. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire compares with her. Long life is in her right hand, and in her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are pleasant ways, and all of her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who take hold of her, and happy are all who hold her fast. And then Yahweh, by wisdom, founded the earth. By understanding, he established the heavens. So we could see wisdom being personified as something you should seek after and gain, and it means to seek after the wise teachings of God and to embrace them and to follow them. We can also see that wisdom is so important for you to acquire that God himself used wisdom as the personified agent to bring about creation. Yahweh, by wisdom, founded the earth, and you can see there that wisdom is not a conscious female alongside God because it's paralleled with God's understanding. What about chapter 8? Does not wisdom call and understanding lift up her voice? Besides the gates, she cries out, quote, pride and arrogance in the evil way and the perverted mouth I hate. My fruit is better than gold, even pure gold, and my yield better than choicest silver. Then I was beside him as a master worker, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him, rejoicing in the world, his earth, and having my delight in the sons of men. So there's a heavy personification passage there in chapter 8 where wisdom does a lot of speaking in the first person. And then we see another one in the first 6 verses of chapter 9. Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn out 7 pillars. She has prepared her bread. She has mixed her wine. Sounds like communion, by the way. She has also set her table. She has sent out her maidens. She's got some female servants. She calls from the top of the heights of the city, quote, whoever is naive, let him turn and hear. To him who lacks understanding, she says, come, eat of my bread and drink of the wine that I have mixed. Forsake your folly and live and proceed in the way of understanding. So the first 9 chapters of Proverbs, we get a sense that we have the wisdom of God. It's God's wise instruction. It's his ways that lead to understanding, but also it is heavily personified as a female figure, but it's not a conscious female alongside God. But then when you get to the very last chapter, chapter 31, we have this description of what's sometimes called the woman of strength, or a wife, or a woman of substance. It can be translated in a variety of ways. And what does it say about her? In Proverbs 31, starting in verse 10, a woman of substance who can find? Her worth is far above jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. She looks for wool and flax and works with her hands in delight. She is like ships that bring profit. She brings her food from afar. She rises also while it is still night and gives bread to her household and portions to her maidens. She considers a field and buys it, and from the fruit of her earnings she plants a vineyard. The passage goes on. Her husband is known at the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them and supplies belts to the tradesmen. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the future. Now, if you read these passages in Hebrew, something very interesting is clear. We can see that this woman, this ideal wife, is the personification, the embodiment of personified wisdom. How do we know? Well, we've already seen that personified wisdom is more profitable than jewels. She offers good things. She hates evil things. She is full of delight. She brings forth profit. She offers bread. She's a homeowner. She works with maidens who serve her. She is bearing fruit. She is speaking at the city gates, and she is engaging in laughter. We read all of those passages. But guess what? The same Hebrew words, the very same Hebrew phrases are used to describe the ideal wife, the woman of substance. Guess what? She is more profitable than jewels. She offers good things. She hates evil things. She's full of delight, bringing forth profit, offering bread. She's a homeowner. She works with maidens who serve her. She bears fruit. She speaks at the city gates, and she is engaging in laughter. Anyone reading the Hebrew would see that the author is portraying this woman as the incarnation of personified wisdom 500 years before the Gospel of John was written. And if that wasn't enough, a little bit later in the passage, in 31 verse 27, the Hebrew verb that's actually used, which you would say in Hebrew as Sophia, is a bilingual pun for the Greek noun, Sophia. So the author knows exactly what he's doing. He's trying to really clue you in onto this point, and a number of scholars have noticed this, as they should. Now, that's just my opinion, but modern scholarship is openly admitting that personified wisdom became incarnate in the woman of substance, as in the ideal female readers of Proverbs 31 who take wisdom's teachings and apply them to their life. So my former teacher, Leo Perdue, says in his commentary, the woman of substance becomes the human incarnation of what woman wisdom teaches. He goes on, he says that she is the incarnation of wisdom in female form. How about this commentary? The woman of substance is in some ways a real-life incarnation of woman wisdom. What about New Testament scholars? Ben Witherington III, another one of my former teachers. He said that this woman is indeed the very embodiment of wisdom. She is wisdom truly embodied. Incarnation began in the book of Proverbs. So that's our earliest occurrence of it, in 400 BC.